So we are live. Welcome everyone to the first episode of Indian Search Marketing Academy for India in 2020. Well, before we start, I would like to wish you all a very happy 2020 and an amazing year ahead on behalf of SEMrush family. Well, today we'll be speaking about on-page SEO, and we have two amazing people with us. So we have Akmal Zamrood, who works at Razorpay, and then we have world famous Deepak Shukla with us. So before we start, so I would like to thank you all for the wonderful support. This time we got around 2,000 registrations, which is a new record in itself. And this is the first show of this second series of ISMA, which is amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for this wonderful support. And I'm really excited, really looking forward to it. I'm sure this is gonna be a great start for every one of us, including me, because I'm really looking forward to hear some great things from Akmal and Deepak on-page SEO, which is one of the hottest topics in SEO. So, without wasting any time, I think we should start with introductions, and I would let the guests introduce themselves. And we start with Akmal, who's an amazing guy who's a very data-driven SEO. He loves data, he loves SEO, and that's a wonderful combination. And he loves travel. And the interesting part is he loves working while traveling. So apparently he was in Himalayas last year and he was working from there as well. So I would love to hear like how was the connectivity, everything there because Himalayas and internet, I don't think it's
Of
a good
course,
combination. Would love to
yeah.
hear more. Yeah.
Thank you, Nitin, for the wonderful introduction. I think in terms of traveling and working, I have faced a lot of issues in terms of connectivity. But at the end of the day, the hotel that you stay at always has Wi-Fi. So it not necessarily means that you have to be out in the mountain to work, but right before you crash, you can actually work for an hour, or like when you wake up, you can work for an hour. That totally makes sense in terms of just getting the work done when you're traveling as well. And it's a different experience altogether, like connecting remotely with the teams, as well as getting on top of stuff and solving things. And it's purely inspirational also, because at the end of the day you want to reach somewhere, both in your life as well as in terms of travel. So yeah, it has been a good experience for me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Akmal, for sharing that. Wonderful having you. Well, but I must say that it's a very dangerous habit. I had the same habit when I started my professional career. I was single, but then I got married one day. And my wife now complains when I work on a vacation. She's like, come on, we are here for vacation. Why are you working? And it's a very, trust me, it's a very dangerous habit. And because I mean it's now in my DNA. I cannot change it completely, but still, when I'm going to washroom and stuff, I'm checking my phone and then checking emails and stuff. But that's a very bad habit. So you should work on it already because I think you're not married yet, but hopefully
Yeah,
it's in coming years,
Nitin, I
couple of
will,
years maybe.
if yeah, I'll definitely come to you for tips, man,
Well,
because you would know
Absolutely.
this more than anyone.
all hail
Yeah.
Nitin. I think that if you keep working from the Himalayas, it's not a bad place to work, though, is it? It sounds absolutely incredible. I mean, in London, where I live, you just I don't know, you can go sit on a hill and work. It's not quite the same thing. It's not quite the same inspiration. So I'm actually quite jealous because you're in Bangalore, of course, but working from the Himalayas, God, that's a movie title right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds fantastic. Well, Deepak, now because you're speaking already, why don't you introduce yourself? Because I think if I take this opportunity to introduce you, I'll probably spend half an hour on that, and I'm sure that's not a nice idea because you only have 60 minutes. So, but I want to also know about your 4:30 a.m. wake up routine. That's super fascinating. So, can you talk about that as well,
Yeah,
along with your introduction?
yeah, no, absolutely. So, hey, everybody, my name's Deepak. I run an agency called Pearl Lemon, and as Gaurav is asking, am I Indian? I was born in the UK, born and raised, but my family came over to London. My mummy and daddy got married when they were 11 and 13, and made their way to India when they were 15, to kind of try and enjoy a different kind of life. So I wake up at 4:30, 4 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, and yeah, I started doing it, Nitin, about 4 or 5 months ago. It's Dude, it's changed my life. It's changed my life. Honestly, it is. It is. It's not easy. It is fun. And I do have challenges with Daniela and my relationship with getting out of the bed literally at 4:30 in the morning. There's more than one argument sometimes, but what can I say? It's a beautiful time of the morning because, as you, Akmal, and same with you, Nitin, it gets to about 7 a.m. and I start thinking about work. Really, I start thinking about work, and for me, the biggest opportunity that waking up at that time gives me is the freedom of mind to actually work on pet projects, work on or learn something or do the things that I enjoy before I start getting calls or messages from the team in Vadodara in India or from clients in the States overnight. So you got to do it, Nitin. You got to do it. One week this week.
Absolutely.
Post your watch
Yeah.
on Facebook, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely try that. And I mean, you're everywhere. You're talking about Quora. I mean, you started with Quora when I heard you about the first time, and now you're talking about almost everything. I think that's the secret recipe, right? You're waking up at 4:30, and then you're utilizing that time and
Yeah.
learning new skills and stuff.
Yeah, you have the
That's
opportunity
fantastic.
to explore, I think, which is the big thing. So it's like, I want to learn something. At 4:30 a.m., you have time to learn something.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I'll definitely try that. That's really inspiring. Thank you so much, people, for sharing that. So, with that, I think it's time to start with the real show that everyone is waiting for. So, we'll be talking about on-page SEO today, and we'll be starting with Akmal Zamrood. We'll be talking about basics and fundamentals of on-page SEO. So, Akmal, the stage is all yours now. Go for it.
Sure. I'm just going to share my screen, guys. Yep, I hope you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
Yeah. So, guys, welcome to SEM Rush Mastering On-Page SEO. My name is Akmal, and let's get started with On-Page SEO. Basically, so what is On-Page SEO? As all of you people know, search engine optimization is kind of tricky and requires a certain amount of effort that needs to be put in from all aspects, not just on-page, off-page, technical as well. In terms of on-page SEO, what needs to be done in terms of getting it on board or like getting it to scale from 0 to 100 phase? So on-page SEO is basically optimizing the individual web pages to improve the relevance for search engines. Optimizing the individual web pages can take place by inserting keywords, by using proper URL structure, by doing a lot of things, and even optimizing images as such. The whole idea of optimizing web pages is to bring relevance to the keyword clusters that people are searching for. For example, if I search for what is on-page SEO, Google shows me the most relevant result, and most relevant result is deemed by Google based on multiple things, multiple factors, and one of them predominantly is the relevance of this keyword with the article or the landing page that we have. And at the end, the goal is to increase the organic traffic through these keyword clusters, because as we know, there's a lot of keyword search that is going on in terms of getting the right content out, in terms of getting the right results out for Google. And moving ahead, what are the ranking factors? There are some basic ranking factors that you need to take care of before you actually publish your pages. In terms of that, one of them is the URL structure. The first one is the URL structure. Getting your URL structure is right is very important, and I'll be speaking in detail about that maybe later. But getting the URL structure is very important. Having a search friendly URL where the search engine or the search bot actually understands what the URL is and the relevance of the keyword to the entire page content, that is important. In terms of keyword density, I know this is a very tricky question. A lot of people say that there should not be keyword stuffing. A lot of people put numbers ahead of keyword density, but there are so many pages that have ranked even with very minimal keywords, direct keywords, as well as like there are a lot of pages that have ranked with very like large number of keywords. So just don't outdo yourself in terms of keyword density. Don't put every keyword in every single line, which doesn't make sense at all, and stop like that will just get you bad rep in terms of Google search. The third point is write fresh content. In terms of fresh content, I think writing about the latest updates or the latest trends along with the year or what, or in terms of just getting the right content out, I think fresh content works a lot. In terms of like when you do the keyword research, also in terms of getting the page content on board, the placement of keywords across the page really helps. So the placement of keywords, what I mean is that basically you should have keywords in the H1 tag, which is the page title. You should have proper keywords within the first 100 words so that Google can understand the page relevance of the page relevance according to the keyword clusters. The H2 tag should have either the direct keyword or the semantic keyword. In terms of getting those things right, I think there needs to be a little effort taken from the user perspective. uh, Coming forward, I think image optimization is one important thing. A lot of people forget to put alt text in images. Alt text in images can be used to optimize for SEO. They bring more relevance to the image with the overall page content, as well as they help in image SEO, which is also a huge search volume. In terms of title and description tag optimizations, like I said, the placement of keywords across the title and description also help. It not only helps in terms of uh, on page relevance, but it also helps in terms of getting the CTRs right. For example, if you have a search result, multiple search results, getting your keyword right or getting the user intrigued to actually click on the search result is one of the important factors in terms of getting things right. Satisfy the search intent, the user. So the search intent is satisfied by a couple of metrics that we measure, right? For example, if there's a lot of bounce on the page, then the search intent is not satisfied. If there is very the average time spent on the page is less, the search intent is not satisfied. That is one of the inferences that we can take once we actually say that, oh, this keyword is ranking for this page. But once you get the search intent right, I think all these metrics are supposed to improve, and the usage metrics of the page actually go higher, and Google deems it to be a much more trustable page than others. And optimize the site for conversions. Conversions purely can be like average pages per session. That would be the metric to optimize for. In terms of going forward, if Google knows that like people who are coming to this or landing through this page in terms of organic search are going to multiple pages, one or more different pages, then Google deems this a much more trustworthy website rather than people who are bouncing from just one single page where the search intent is not satisfied. In terms of on-page SEO strategy, these are the important things that need to be covered in terms of ranking. I'm just moving forward to URL structures. Okay, so in terms of URL structuring, what works for you? I'll just go through the protocol, the host name and directory file names, etc., just to give you an idea. Protocol is basically HTTP versus HTTPS. As you all know, HTTPS is preferred by Google these days in terms of ranking. So there is more probability for a website with a SSL certificate to rank higher than one without an SSL certificate. The next most important thing is your domain name. The domain name can be anything related to the search query, or it can be unique as well, but it all depends on what Google categorizes your website into. It can be a payments related uh, website, it can be a food related website, it can be a blog or anything, but the domain name matters as well in terms of relevance. The directory also matters because that gives you a route to where you want to point at. And in terms of the root, the file name also matters, along with the query parameters, which I'll go deep into later. The query parameters are usually used for tracking. So the three most important things that we want to understand over here is what works for you in terms of creating a URL. Do you need a subdirectory or a subdomain? For example, a lot of people have come with this doubt whether they want to put their blog on a subdirectory or subdomain. What is easier for them? What will help them ranking more? Hashbang URLs. Hashbang URLs, because a lot of websites nowadays are on Angular or Ajax based websites where the controller actually calls them based on the hash. So those are some things that actually need to be looked at. And in terms of tracking query parameters, what should be the right method? What are the do's and don'ts in terms of query parameters? So moving ahead to subdirectory versus subdomain. This is a huge conflict that comes. A lot of people have different opinions of using subdomains versus subdirectories. Google has even come out with an official video that says that Google renders both the subdomain and the subdirectory equally for SEO, but stronger signals always come to the subdirectory because it is directly related to the root directory. If you want to create a subdomain, then it can be used for a microsite, which is a completely different intent. For example, if you have razorpay.com, then the careers page can come under careers.razorpay.com, because Razorpay careers is also a very high volume keyword, but then it does not satisfy the intent of the payment industry that we are in. So careers can be a separate microsite. We can use a subdomain to actually host it over there. But in terms of the blog, where we actually want the payment industry, want to cater to the payment industry, become a thought leader across the payment industry, over there we actually prefer to have it on the subdirectory, because chances of us ranking higher are based on the subdirectory and the weightage of the root domain that comes on over there. In terms of hashbang URLs, a lot of questions come up because a lot of developers prefer using React, Node, and other Ajax-based dynamic websites, which have a hash in between. So a lot of issue comes because back in 2015, Google had actually deprecated the use of hashing URLs. But then, as technology has evolved and moved forward, by 2018, Google said that okay, let's create a special syntax for them. These URLs are SEO friendly. You don't have to worry about these URLs. But there is a special condition that comes. The syntax for the hashbang URLs deems that there should be an exclamation mark next to the hash, which will tell Google that okay, there's a page over here, and the controller is being used to call different pages. So even though the whatever changes after the hash, it is created to relevant content across the container that is called. So that is based on hashbang URLs. Moving forward to tracking parameters. Tracking parameters, usually people use tracking parameters to measure the efficiency of campaigns. For example, if you run paid campaigns, then you use your UTM source, UTM medium, UTM term, campaign, etc. And the efficiency of the campaigns are measured by this. So it is only used for tracking and not effective for SEO. So there's no point in us putting extra effort over there. Just whenever you run any campaigns, just make sure that you keep it unique so that you are able to track it efficiently through Google Analytics or Search Console or wherever. Yeah. Coming to header tag placements, this is my favorite thing to talk about, because what the H? Appropriate usage of tags. I have seen a lot of places, a lot of websites where tags have been not placed properly. There have been issues with duplicate tags and like how to optimize the tags. In terms of getting the header tags right, there are around like 6 header tags, H1 through H6. H1 brings more relevance to the page, and H2 is used for subtitle, section headings and subtitles. So I'll just go forward. In terms of the most common mistakes made with header tag placements is that if you see a website, if you open a website, there'll be a huge heading in the top saying that okay, whatever the intent of the website is, and most developers actually go ahead and put a p tag and increase the height to 70 pixels. They just blast the height because it looks good and it's easier to do. But the right method should be that it should be placed within a hashtag. The hashtag can be customized for whatever height and whatever font, or to look better in whatever way, because H1 is a important metric. It gives an important signal to Google and says that the page title is relevant to the keyword cluster that the user is searching for, and there should be only one hashtag on the page. In terms of page title, H1 should be the predominantly title. Section headings can be used for H2 tags. Even the subheadings can be used for H2 tags, and more classification. So it's basically kind of sort of a hierarchy that happens over here, where H1 is your predominant title over there, and all the section headings and all the subtitles come under H2. And if you want to classify it more, you can use H3 under each H2, which will tell Google that okay, there's a hierarchy to this page and it's not just a single piece of content. And based on that, you can also implement a lot of things. Moving forward of how to optimize tags with FAQ. So on the right side, if you can see, this is all the FAQs that I see on Google. Once I search for what is on-page SEO. So ideally, in terms of keyword research, we need to understand and we need to find out what are the most asked questions for the keyword cluster. In terms of on-page SEO, these are the most important questions. What is included in on-page SEO? What is off-page SEO? Why is on-page SEO important? What are off-page SEO factors? And using these relevant search queries, we need to structure the different section of pages so that the search intent is satisfied. Because Google shows these questions because they are most asked questions and they are easier to know. And once you implement schema for these different sections or for the FAQ sections, you will also be eligible to be shown within the Google schema system. In case of these are in case of blogs where you can actually structure different sections of the pages. But in case of landing pages, we can use a different FAQ section itself to cater to these questions. Yeah. Moving forward, yeah, that is it from my end. I'll pass it on to Deepak to take it forward.
That was fantastic. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Akmal, for sharing all that. You covered like a lot of concepts, a lot of things that people have in their mind. So thank you so much for putting light on that. So Deepak, yeah, what do you think about everything that Akmal shared?
Yeah, Akmal, thank you. First of all, you went through an incredible amount of stuff. The thing that sprang to mind for me when I was listening to the presentation was what, because I know that you're in Bangalore at the moment. What do you, amongst all of those issues that, or rather recommendations you've given, what do you find seem to be the most common mistakes that you see in terms of the on-page content side? Because that was that's one of the things that kind of speaks to me, that what is it that you found to be amongst all of that the most common problem that you see a lot of across a lot of the content that you optimize?
Yeah, so the most common problem that I see is based on the tag relevance. There are a lot of developers who are like really great and amazing developers, but because of the lack of an SEO knowledge, they tend to like just put span and p tags, and where you should have actually implemented h1 and h2 tags, and that just throws SEO game completely off.
Yeah.
So that is one of the most important things. These developers, like I personally know so many developers who are like crazy skilled, but because of the very lack of SEO knowledge, then this is a very common mistake that happens across a lot of websites that I've seen.
And do you find that, because this is a common challenge I see quite often with a very technically led organization, which you can find some amazing developers. How do you find that developers and SEOs, as well as content writers, all coordinate together within companies based anywhere in India, really?
Yeah, for companies based anywhere in India, especially. So the process over here involves the marketing team. Like for me, it's personally SEO to give a guideline doc to the front end team or the tech team to actually follow. So the doc that I have given clearly states that on the first fold of the page there needs to be an H1, which is the title tag, of the page, and the image needs to have an illustration and alt tag, and the subheading should be in an H2. So I have given all these pointers to the front end as well as the tech teams so that they can execute this more.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that the challenges that I often see, and it's something that I want to kind of go on to. Do you think that over optimization is also a big challenge? Because I can see lots of light bulbs going off when people run through the series of a very detailed technical guide. I will do absolutely everything. Is that because I wonder if that's the realm that we start getting into?
Over optimization, I've not personally faced any over optimization as such. It is always me who goes back and says that okay, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. But it should not be a problem. Ideally, even if it is over optimized, it should not be a problem. It should not lead to any bad signals that you give off to Google.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And guys, I mean, this is the content. It's a common problem outside India as well. So I've been working with multiple clients here, based in Europe, and then in the US. So same story everywhere. And I think Deepak, you have an agency, and then you are also handling multiple clients. So I'm sure you see this every time on every single website, right?
Yeah.
So I think I was actually thinking about that. So because I saw this problem here at Omeo as well, the company where I'm working at the moment. So a very quick thing can be, and if you disable all the CSS that you're using, because CSS is spoiling the SEO stuff here, because you can basically give a nice look to even p tag, as Akmal mentioned.
Yeah.
So if you just disable CSS and see the raw HTML, then you get the real feel like how the content is looking now.
Yeah.
And we have H1, H2, H3, and so on for a reason. This is like fundamentals of web designing, or like creating web page. So if you disable CSS, then you see like how H1 looks, and then how H2 looks, and how H2 is coming under H1, or maybe it's not coming at all. So it should look very natural for a user as well. When user is reading, you should understand that, okay, this is the main heading, this subheading, and this is what we have like for the classification and so on. So if you disable CSS, then you see the real look of this web page, what search engine bots also understand. So that's, I think, one quick tip to see how the page and content looks.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's a fantastic point, and that's, you know, really leads on to, you know, the part that I'd love to talk to the audience about is once you have clarity on all of the components of on-page SEO from a technical standpoint, as I see with some of the questions as to the URL structures, as well as the header tags and the H1s, H2s. What is this then, or how do we then apply content to on-page SEO? So I will now, if it works for you, my friend Nitin, I will share my screen and move
Absolutely. Stage is all yours. Go for it.
Okay, brilliant. So my friends, first of all, I'm going to just share my screen and double check that, number one, can you see my screen is the first question.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Can everybody hear me okay as well?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
fantastic. So guys, well, Akmal, first of all, thank you so much for taking us through, you know, all of the components of what we need to think about when we consider on-page SEO. And really what I want to ultimately outline is one of from my experiences working with both my team, you know, we've got one of our offices based out in Vadodara in Gujarat, as well as some of the clients that we work with that are based across South Asia, really, India, Bangladesh. We've got a client in Sri Lanka as well. I want to walk through the challenge, or shall I say the fear to a degree, that a lot of non-native writers have when it comes to producing content, and what we need to do in terms of making content that is built both for SEO as well as for humans. And that's a challenge that I think that a lot of content writers, when combined with developers and SEOs, and that could all be the same person in some organizations, have. So what we're going to go through first is we're going to talk about the whole space of, you know, keywords ultimately. And if we go to the presentation page, you'll see that these will be this is from the landing page. These will be the three areas that I'll be going through. So we're going to be talking about exact match as well as semantic keywords. We're going to be talking about understanding density and how and if this actually still applies. And I saw in the comments, we're also going to be talking about link structure within a piece of content on page. And what you're going to really walk away from this presentation with is a clear understanding of what you actually need to think about when you're producing on-page content, killer on-page content, once you have implemented or you've got the guidelines to all of the advice that Akmal has given you. So stay tuned, and I'm going to walk you through some of the things that we really, really need to start considering. So exact match keywords, I'm very confident that all of you know what an exact match keyword is. To give you a very, very quick example, what I've done is I've just typed in, as an example, YouTube SEO services. I've used search operator, so you can see that this is something now that will appear in search. Now, and there you can see Pearl Lemon there, fantastic. So why I want to kind of focus upon this is a common mistake, a common challenge that I still see always happening is when people start thinking about keyword research, right? And then they start building content calendars, is that you will begin to often see a huge almost duplication or lots of similarity around building for the exact match search, which would be YouTube SEO services, or as you can see, keywords that are potentially, and that's Google search operator listings here, or keywords that are very, very similar. So in this case, it could be YouTube SEO service. Let's try and rank for that. Let's try and rank for, as you can see, YouTube video SEO services. Or what about video SEO video SEO, YouTube. And what often starts to happen when we begin thinking about exact match keywords is that you also then, and we've got the example here, of course, with YouTube SEO services, you then begin identifying partial matches, okay? So we've got the exact match here. We've got some partial matches here. And what I want to invite you to consider, and by the way, this isn't about actually being a native writer or not. I see this with native writers. I see this with native English writers. I see this with German, French, Spanish, Indian writers. I see it in every language that when you solely consider partial match and exact match, when, as Nitin said, that you pull away the CSS, you look at what's on the page in terms of the header tags, you look at a piece of content, you really actually need to stop thinking specifically about these keywords, okay? You need to stop thinking specifically and solely about these keywords. The reason for that is we had, of course, something called the Penguin update a long time ago in 2012. And what often happens that I still see in content is that people will then begin combining either exact match or partial match, as we saw here, exact match or partial match. They'll look at something like keyword density, and they'll go right back to Nitin and say, Nitin, you know what I've done, my friend? You told me to write about YouTube SEO. So I found the first 7 variations around YouTube SEO as instructed, and I've got them around 7 or 8 times within my piece of content. So this is, for a lot of people, the place of safety, I think, that they come from. And this is the inherent challenge that we've got with guides. The inherent challenge that you have with guides is it will say, okay, let's mention the word YouTube SEO maybe 2 to 3 times within a piece of 500-word content, right? I know about over optimization. I know about keyword stuffing. So therefore, what I'm going to do is also start using partial matches because it's no longer an exact match. Guys, Google's pretty smart. It's still pretty much quite a strong example of what then ultimately Hummingbird brought in was the issue of over optimization of content, because what we really need to do when we think about keywords and therefore content, and I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again, is not thinking in terms of exact matches like YouTube SEO, right? So if we go to what is YouTube SEO, give me a second. I'm going to open up a page. What is YouTube SEO? I want to show you something that's quite interesting, okay? So we were talking about exact matches, okay? So we've got an exact match here, video SEO YouTube. Let me as you can see, there's an exact match there, video SEO YouTube, video SEO YouTube. But what I'm doing, of course, is using the actual commas for Google search operators. What we actually need to think about is, let's keep going, semantic matches, okay? So semantic matches is another expression for what is the actual meaning behind the search, okay? So when you think about applying the appropriate header tags, the title tags, the H1s, the H2s, what you actually need to begin with before you think about the technical infrastructure of a page is you need to think about, well, what is the actual search intent? What is the search intent? And this is why this, for me, is so incredibly important, because we sometimes get worried when it's a subject that we're not familiar with, or maybe it's a language that you're not familiar with. So then what you start relying upon is exact matches, partial matches. You start looking at the number of keywords. And then what we sometimes forget about is, well, what is the intent of the user? What is Google's actual intent? And I want to just show you what happens when you search for what is YouTube SEO, okay? So when you search for what is YouTube SEO, what you'll find as the actual first search is discussing YouTube SEO strategy, okay, people also ask for, and Akmal actually did an amazing example of showing this with, you know, the actual questions that come up here with the FAQs, and he discussed the schema. And what's really interesting about all of these pieces is that we need to actually consider semantic intent, okay? Because when someone's searching for what is YouTube SEO, Google, right? Google has determined that actually what that person is probably thinking about is a YouTube SEO strategy. We've got, does it help with my ranking? We've got video results, okay? We've got how to rank YouTube videos. This is the first actual, let's have a look. This is the second result after the videos. And what it's talking about is how to rank actual YouTube videos in 2020. So notice the question is not really exact. It's not perhaps potentially even partial. It's really all about the actual intent that sits underneath the actual search. So sometimes one of the things I think that, and I'm going to come back again to everybody, one of the things that we don't do, right, often is that we'll develop a keyword list, we'll pull it out from Ahrefs, we'll pull it out from Moz, SEMrush, Google it. Actually think about the results that come up for a keyword that you're trying to rank for, and then begin to think about the intent behind the keyword. What is it that Google is actually displaying in terms of result? And what often happens is that we'll focus upon the prevalence or the quantity of the use of that keyword, as opposed to the semantic intent that sits behind the actual keyword. And this isn't about language. I know there's the large majority of the audience here are from India, and I think that sometimes the worry that some people have is that, well, it's not, this is so this is not about actual language. This is about the intent when it relates to the actual content that you're putting together. So this is, for me, one of the biggest mistakes that I often see when it comes to keywords, matches, density, frequency, and all of these different bits and pieces. So let's go on and talk about the next element of it, which is actual keyword density and the ideal percentage of keyword occurrence within a piece of content. So you've figured out that, let me share my screen again. Give me a second, my friends. So here we go. Can you see my screen, Nitin and Akmal?
Yeah,
Brilliant, brilliant. So perfect. So you figured out, you know, right, I understand semantic intent, Deepak. The keyword was, you know, I want to rank for YouTube SEO services, but actually I need to have a look at what is actually coming up when people search for that. And there's a Fiverr link, there's YouTube SEO one-on-one, getting started optimizing. What are the actual things that are dominating it? So a lot of it relates to views. Some of it relates to potential services that you can purchase from Fiverr. Then there's the whole getting started optimizing. So I'm taking that keyword, I'm having a look at the actual content that's ranking on page one for that keyword, and I'm going to begin taking components of all of them, and within that, I'm going to build a keyword cluster. So one of the things that Akmal spoke about was, when thinking about keyword density, is that you think about head keywords, you think about the long tail keywords, and all of the kind of variations in between. And with that, you start thinking about kind of the ideal percentage. So again, and I think that this is one of the common things that I've seen with agencies or companies that outsource their writing, that ask content writers to really think about SEO content in mind. That the problem with an ideal percentage, okay, the problem with an ideal percentage, and let's just, I think, show you perhaps a live example of it. Okay, great. So I've searched now YouTube SEO, guys. As you can see, can you see this clearly, Nitin, on my actual search result?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So we'll go into the page one ranked piece of content. It's Backlinko. It's Brian Dean, and what I'm going to do is, first of all, I want to show you how long this piece of content is. By the way, guys, I think this is over 10,000. This is definitely over 10,000 words. I'm pretty confident. But what I want to do in showing you this page, if I can get the thing to load. Okay, fine. Here we go. Is I want to search for So YouTube SEO as an exact match keyword in a probably, yeah, okay, I think this is probably over 10,000 words, I imagine. It's been shown 29 times, okay, which, considering the length of the content, really actually isn't a lot at all, okay? Now, a lot of people focus upon the percentage and focus upon the density and focus upon how many times can I actually demonstrate that there's a keyword that's correlated to it. So maybe, you know, YouTube SEO service, or thinking about a YouTube title tag. But when you start getting into the realm of ideal percentages, what we actually also, when we're reviewing content, when we're looking at content that's been written, you want to look, and what this never reveals is actual keyword frequency. Okay, so what is the frequency of the keyword that appears? So as you'll notice, we're searching for YouTube SEO now. Let me zoom in even further. What you'll notice is that he has done a very good job of sprinkling it throughout the actual content. So as we keep going down, you'll see that it's spread out through the entire piece of content. So the problem, and in fact, to be honest with you, I've just realized I'm completely wrong. YouTube SEO is mentioned only 4 times or 5 times in his piece of content in 10,000 words. The rest of it is in the comments of the audience. So he's hardly using the actual exact match or even a partial match keyword within his piece of content. The focus is on the actual semantic intent. And therefore, when you think about an ideal percentage, I want you to forget about the ideal percentage. I want you to think about what is the actual semantic intent of the audience. What are they trying to find out? And therefore, when you're reviewing content, do make sure that keywords are evenly spread. Do make sure that you are thinking about latent semantic indexing, and you're thinking about all of the different clusters that sit around these keywords. And if you begin to think about those things and stop thinking about density, stop thinking about ideal percentages, then you're going to be met with a lot more success. So I want to talk about the final piece of this presentation, which is the whole kind of area that surrounds internal and external links when it relates to content, okay? And how should you use them, okay? So you will often see, and this is a big confusion, or something that sometimes happens, that when you're looking at the world of, for example, PR, and let's go back to you guys again. When you're thinking about getting, you know, Deepak, I want to get a link in Forbes. Deepak, I want to get a link in Huffington Post. By standard practice, a lot of these big sites have links that aren't no follow, okay? So they're no follow, therefore they don't pass the attribution onto your end site, okay? And a lot of people end up using this as an actual reference point for when they're thinking about, well, how should I use external links within a piece of content, okay? Now, when you place an external link into a piece of content, and we're beginning to also talk about no follow versus do follow, right? So the first thing is that within a piece of content, you should use external links, okay? You should use external links. The way to think about it, and again, user intent, user experience, is that it's referencing fundamentally. Think about your university assignments. The people that get the best marks use academic references to back up the things that they're saying. So definitely do use external links alongside the internal links. But the other element of it is that a large proportion of you may be thinking, right, I'm going to use an internal linking structure as well as my external links, and I'll use the appropriate anchors, but I'm just going to no follow everything that's external, because that's probably, you know, better for me, because I don't want to pass an attribution. So think about what that means when you're talking about, you know, Google search, etc. What it means really is that you're telling Google the source is not trustworthy, because you don't want to pass an attribution, okay? And if you're referencing something from the BBC or from Forbes or from, you know, Buzzsprout or from wherever you may be referencing something from, it actually serves you better if you do actually pass on some of the attribution. And as a consequence, the piece of content that you produce, when you write something for YouTube SEO that only uses the exact keyword a couple of times and really focuses upon the intent based around what someone is searching for, and you combine that with, you know, the actual semantic intent, so latent semantic indexing, we're looking really about answering a user's questions, and you build in an appropriate level of internal but mainly versus external links, you're going to actually begin to start producing a really, really interesting and powerful piece of content. So I guess the main thrust of what I wanted to add to what Akmal said and what he's done so well is the technical component is incredibly important. And I think that we as a nation, whether you're a British Indian like me, or whether you are an Indian in Germany like Nitin, or you're in Bangalore like Akmal, the technical stuff we do really well. We do really well. It goes without saying. But a lot of us think too technically when we think about content. Begin with writing something that your friend will say, that is a really great piece of content that's actually answering the question. Don't begin by actually thinking about writing for SEO, then produce a piece of content that's awesome and give it to someone like Akmal, give it to someone like myself. And using that whole process, I really think you can then combine amazing on-page SEO strategies to start producing some beautiful content. And that is what I wanted to share with everybody today.
Wonderful. That was fantastic. I mean, a lot of people are asking about BERT and then, how it affects and then keywords versus intent. So you answered all those questions already. That was fantastic. I really loved it. And, uh, you took like 5 minutes more than what we decided on, but I was really into it. I didn't realize. I just realized. Okay. So now we are left with 13 minutes, and we have a lot of questions. So let's quickly go to that. But before that, I would like to ask Akmal, if you are interactive.
Yeah, Nitin. So just a quick clarification for the users who are watching further. What do you think personally should be the difference in semantic match insertion of keywords between a 500 word article versus a pillar page or a long form content of 5,000 word articles? Like, what would be the best practices when people are trying to rank for, like, if their competitors are already writing 5,000 word articles, then what would be the best practices that need to be followed there?
It's a good question. I think that when we begin to transition from how do these rules apply from a 500 word piece to a 5,000 word piece, again, I know that there's a big desire for the shorter pieces to use the actual technical recommendations as to, right now I'll think a little bit more about keyword density. Now I'll think a little bit more about, how many instances should I use a word that's semantically related to the primary keyword I'm trying to rank for. I think that there's a couple of things. I think that first of all, number one, that you shouldn't let the length of the content impact the way you think about the piece of content. That's the first thing. I think the second thing, meaning practically, that you should still not try and keyword stuff, because I think the question underneath the question is, Deepak, should I add more keywords if it's only a 500 word piece of content? That's really, I think, what the question might be. No, the answer is no. Don't think of it like that. The second thing is that, well, when you have a 500 word piece, you're probably now getting into the realms of maybe copywriting. I'm thinking sales pages versus informational pages. For the most part, we will have a 500 word page that relates to perhaps our services, and then we'll have a 5,000 word page that relates to an actual information behind this industry. So if you're talking about windows, then you might have, look, these are the windows you can buy from our manufacturing company. This is everything you need to know about what our windows are made of and why they're better than anybody else's. So you've got two different forms of copywriting. And with that in mind, that's the way that you should think about it. So think about the user, think about what they're trying to do on each of those pages, and then, of course, think about those pieces. So I'd say that the same rules still apply, but the nuance or the difference really is that it comes a lot more down to a different style of copywriting while still containing the kind of semantic intent. The main aim of the pillar page, if you will, and the pillar page is probably the 5,000 word piece. The main aim of that is to educate and inform the user. So if you build a proper internal linking structure, and you have enough links pointed to either your sales page, then that's the way that you should be thinking about it. And the sales page, well, you're selling. The idea is on that page probably to book a call, to get a download, and the way that journey will work is that you'll have the pillar page that people will find, and then maybe from there they'll find your sales page. So that's kind of the way that you think about it. And again, notice I didn't talk about it technically. I'm speaking about user intent, and then you can look, because it's quite easy to add a piece of anchor text as long as the copywriting is in place. And naturally, if you're thinking about the user, Akmal's come to my site. He is interested. He's on my page because he's thinking about buying windows, because he's got a 50-room building and it's going to be custom made for the new offices for Razorpay, and they're thinking about building these cool windows. So therefore, I want to talk about how our windows have been used across different client sites, the requests that they made, and therefore the kind of result you can expect from us. That's not a pillar page. That's a sales page, but you're still using the same keywords. So that's kind of the way that I think about it.
Okay,
absolutely
cool,
perfect. Well, and you already mentioned about user. Think about user first. And one more thing I want to mention here is you will never ever be able to find one size fits all solution here. So for different industries, different user intents, the solution will be different. So do not rely on do not rely on your findings from one industry and try to apply it everywhere. Just keep trying, keep learning, and Google is always changing. So you'll always have new findings. You'll always be able to make your content accordingly. So keep doing experimentation and then keep learning from it. So that would be like one final advice on this. All right, let's quickly jump to the questions now, because we are left with 8 minutes and we have a lot of questions. So let's start with this question. This is a very common question. The question is it good idea to use both AMP version and non-AMP version of a web page? What do you think about it, Deepak or Akmal?
I think that, so AMP is all about speed, right? So speed fundamentally is the thing that people place in common with AMP, that, you have pages where you have all of the static content that loads first. So I want you, when you think about the answer to this, for whoever's listening, what is the intent of your page? If you're an e-commerce business and you have a kind of user who will leave the page after 3 seconds, then AMP is, of course, massive, because everything is related to speed. If it's a page where you're running ad campaigns to it and you've got competitors that are running ad campaigns, then AMP becomes hugely important. If you've got a page about gardening that talks about the different types of seeds, how you should plant, water, and take care of them, speed is of less essence to your end user. So for me, when you begin to think about these elements, then you can think about, well, should I use both? Should I use one? And I think that the question to a large degree relates about speed, and then thinking about who the user is, and then determining it based upon what you're trying to actually position for that user.
Also, just adding on to what Deepak said, I think that AMP works really well for content delivery, especially in terms of editorial websites use it a lot. So if you see any editorial website, they use AMP a lot in terms of like just faster loading and just giving the user the best user experience and just minimizing the bounce rates of the page.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. That was a wonderful answer. And with that, we will move to another interesting question, which is about how do you on-site optimize your content for the content which is behind a sign up?
Okay, so it is kind of tricky in terms of whether you want your pages indexed or not. So usually all the pages that are behind the sign up are not indexed, because either if you're working on a social network or a website of that sort, then the sign up is indexed. So even if you see e-commerce websites, you really don't have a sign up. You don't have to go through a sign up process to actually view the content. So it's not gated content in sense, all the information or all the pages that you want behind the sign up, usually for 90% or 95% of websites, the companies make it a point for it not to be indexed.
Yeah.
Even in Razorpay, like everything that is behind the sign up is not indexed at all, because it doesn't make sense for a user to go 2 levels down to that page, click on the page, and ultimately into a sign up, because the intent is not served over there.
It's an excellent. I think that's an excellent point. That again, it's what is the purpose of that page? If it's behind a sign up, then it's gated content. So it's clearly not for. It's not a piece of content that's designed for discoverability, because you've hidden it on purpose. So the page or the piece of content that led the person to the sign up is what you want to be discovered. And then anything after that is gated, sealed off in a box, throw away the key. So don't do on-site optimization for content behind a sign up, because if you're doing that, remove the sign up and let people see it, because otherwise your work will ultimately get wasted. You're always going to run into troubles to a degree if you're trying to optimize content that's behind a sign up, because then you need to think about, well, what is the purpose of what I'm doing? So I couldn't agree more with Akmal, and I think that really think about who you're trying to hide it from, and actually focus on the optimization for the content that leads a person to the sign up.
Yeah, perfect. Well, and Deepak, you I know you're master of video SEO as well, and you're doing a fabulous job on that. So we have a question on that. Let's talk about that next. So the question is, many people use hashtags and repetitive keywords in YouTube. They still rank better. What's the secret sauce here?
I think that so there's no single rule that applies to everybody. You will see many examples of things that you could use to negate or to disagree with what maybe Akmal has said, or what I said, or what Nitin has said. So there'll be instances where keyword stuffing in some channels and some pages does work. And this is where two things. So number one, it does work in some cases. Does that mean it's a long-term strategy? No, because it will at some point stop working. Like that's just a fact. That's the first thing to consider. The second thing to consider is you might still think, well, Deepak, it's ranking and they're stuffing, so I want to do the same thing. And that relates to Nitin's point that you have spaces where you can experiment. Okay, so if you experiment and see the advice that a Google or an SEO specifically gives seems to run against your actual experimentation, that's a real world example of you producing alternative SEO theory based upon a result that you've got. So every industry is a little bit different. So the way that, for example, we have some clients that work in the CBD space, that work in the vape space, and we see that SEO's a little bit different in their space because Google takes a particular stance upon sites of that nature, or any site that can't advertise on Google. In the same way, no one industry vertical is exactly the same, so depending upon the domain, the industry, some people can do what they want. If you go to Amazon and look at a lot of their pages, they're not always thinking about SEO on all of their pages. You can find multiple examples where they ignore all of the rules. There's like bloated JavaScript, there's issues everywhere, and it will always outrank you. So you'll always find exceptions to the rule. So I'd say that, have a look at what's working. If you choose to focus on keyword stuffing because you're seeing it working, it comes with its own risks. So that's just the only thing you need to consider. And then otherwise, I wish you well.
That was spot on. Thank you so much, Deepak, for answering that. So one more question we can take for now, and then we have many questions here which are not answered. So for that, you can catch any one of us on our preferred communication channel to speak about that, and then we'll be more than happy to answer these questions. But one last question for the day is from Priyanka about personalization. So apparently, Neil Patel mentioned in one of his blogs about personalization. He mentioned future is personalization. So how does personalization goes with SEO? What do you think about it?
I'll let you take that question, Akmal. I think I've answered the last two, and then I'll.
Yeah. So according to Neil Patel's blog, yes. In terms of is SEO dead? No, of course not. SEO is not dead. SEO is very much alive, and with Google bringing out search algorithms very frequently in the last 6 months, it is just an indicator that things are looking better ahead in terms of on-page relevance, or in terms of different websites or even newer websites ranking for and beating the legacy players who have existed in terms of that. In terms of the futurist personalization, yes, I think that is one of the keys over there. It could be a very simple example that we use that for our pages at Razorpay. We use a certain personalization for a couple of pages where we change the username. So any person who has visited our website in the past or was already signed in, we change the username, saying that it might be good morning slash Akmal, good morning slash Deepak, good morning slash Nitin. It could be of that sort. When Google indexes the page, what happens in that case? Because we already have, we use multiple tools like Optimize or HubSpot to actually make these changes, right? So these changes are actually based on those tools, and Google understands that, okay, there might be content that might be varied based on whether it be a search query parameter or whether it be a user IP or a unique ID on the website. But even in terms of personalization, it does not affect SEO to a huge level. SEO is still the on-page SEO is still not affected by the amount of personalization that you have on the page in terms of that.
I think
Yeah,
that
I would
was
second that. Yeah, and well, it doesn't help directly, but indirectly it does somehow. Because if you have nice personalized elements on your landing pages, then people are spending more time, which gives a very good signal to search engines that the content you have on these landing pages is very satisfactory, and then they would think about ranking you higher than others because you have amazing content. People are engaging with this content; they are not going back to surf and click on the page because you have the content they were looking for. And I have a similar example here at Omeo. So we are a travel company based in Berlin, and we have a module on the homepage which says uh, popular destinations near you. So if you're searching, if you're landing on this page from Berlin, you'll see places nearby. If you're landing on this page, let's say from somewhere from some, let's say from London, then you'll see places around London and so on. But then if we open this module for everyone, including search engine bot, then bot will mostly come from the US based IP, and they'll see locations from around US, and they would probably think about this and website and this product for US users only, and we don't want to do that. So there are different ways you can handle it, but yeah, personalization has pros and cons. So it is a topic which is really good for user experience, but then you should think about the SEO side of it and think about a solution.
I thought
So
sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Nitin.
yeah, so with that, I think we're done with the questions, and we are moving to the last and the final part of this webinar, which is saying goodbye in SEMrush style, where I would invite both of you one by one, and you can share your key takeaway, and you can also mention your preferred communication channel where people can catch you with their questions if the questions are not answered here. So, Deepak, you can start.
So everybody, my key takeaway when you're thinking about on-page SEO is to really consider the user intent behind the keyword that you're trying to rank for. Why is Akmal coming to my YouTube SEO page? Is it a page where he's looking to buy my service, or is it a page where he's looking to understand about how to do SEO himself? And as a consequence, how can I write content that will keep Akmal? And this is the second part. How can you write content that will keep someone on that page for like 10 minutes? That is the key. When you start producing content that will keep people on the page for like minutes and minutes, you can do some, really incredible things with your SEO. And if you've got any other questions, feel free to connect with me on Facebook, Deepak Shukla. Connect with me on LinkedIn. It's the same thing. You'll find my beautiful face there. And of course, feel free to reach out to Nitin. You probably know him through this show quite well. We're connected on Facebook as well. So thank you, everybody. Facebook, LinkedIn is perfect. And I pass it over to Akmal.
Yeah. So I will talk about the other side of the coin that Deepak has talked about. My key takeaway is that content definitely requires a lot of additional effort from your end to analyze keywords, to get the right content on board, to get that gripping element on board, to keep your user gripped on to the website for like 10 minutes. It is the technical stuff that you can do it easily and execute it easily. So my key takeaway is just get the technicalities on point, so that when you create killer content, and of course you will, I hope everyone does create killer content. At that point, then you will have very strong foundation and a base to actually scale upon. So yeah, and you can reach out to me on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. My name is Akmal Zamrood. And if you want to reach out to me on email, my email is zamrood3@gmail.com. Yeah, and you can just ping me or reach out to Nitin. So Nitin will give you my contact.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, Deepak and Akmal. It was amazing having you, and it was one of my favorite shows. I'm sure. I mean, I learned a lot, and it was fabulous. Thank you so much once again. And if you have any questions for me, you can catch me on Twitter at _Nitman, or you can catch me on LinkedIn. You can just search for my name. I'm very searchable there. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for a wonderful response. And have a nice day. Goodbye.